This is week 12, and week 12 was all about testing. So the first thing that we did was we created a test demo.java document. This document has a method that was created in order to test two parameters given here, A and B, and seeing if both parameters are positive numbers, basically greater than 0, and if so, they're added together and the sum is returned, and if not, then a illegal argument exception is thrown, reading both parameters must be positive. This method is tested in the test demo test.java document. We started by creating the setup method, which was before each test is done, this is what's going to be called. In the setup method, we created the test demo object. And what that does is it just ensures that a new test demo object is created before each test is done. Following the setup method, we created this test right here, which was assert that two positive numbers are added correctly. This takes 4 parameters, A, B, the expected int, and the Boolean of true or false, whether or not we expected an exception to be thrown. Below this method, in order for it to be tested, we needed to have some numbers to test. So in order to do that, we had to create a static method, and we named it arguments for add positive. Basically, this method will return a stream of all of these arguments. These arguments are what this method up here are going to take into account in order to test the code. So for instance, it would take 2 if positive plus 4 if positive together, sum together to make 6. And the reason why we wrote false here is because the expected exception is false. We don't expect an exception to happen to be thrown because 2 plus 4 does equal 6. The following we used -4, -8. Adding those two together would be -12. However, we do expect an exception to be thrown because they are not positive numbers. And finally, we used a 0 and 140. If we added those two together, it's 140. And we also wrote true because an exception would be thrown because 0 is not more than 0. It's 0. Next, we went back into test demo.java in order to create another method, random number squared, and this would return this method, get random integer, multiplied by itself in order to get the random number squared. So this method gets a random number, and that number is between 1 and 10. So following that, we went back into test demo test.java file, and we created a test for that method, or those methods rather. So for this test, we needed to use a mock demo in order to do the test. And what that means is that we had to create an instance, like we used 5, for instance. We had to give it a value because we have a random number that is being issued in the method. So we had to mock it and create a number in order to actually test it, which should equal to 25 down here because 5 multiplied by itself equals 25. So finally, we're going to test all of our code. We're going to run it as a JUnit test. And it should pass. Everything should pass. And right here, there you go. It runs 4 to 4. There's no errors, no fails. If you click down here, you get to see everything passed. Everything worked.